Good morning. Welcome to the spiritual reflection today from Deborah's Tree. I'm the Reverend Roslyn Taylor, joining you for a moment of reflection and beginning with taking a moment to focus on the flame, on the candle, inviting the divine light into our lives through the word, through all manner of instruction and enlightening guidance that we receive with gratitude. And setting that aside, I've been feeling recently like I've been blown around and buffeted by all kinds of winds and not really feeling grounded the way I would prefer to feel. And so I kind of looked around a bit and I found this psalm. It's part of Psalm 83 that was sort of describing how I'm feeling. I wonder if you can relate to this. O God, do not be silent. Do not ignore us. Do not be inactive, O God. For look, your enemies are making a commotion. Those who hate you are hostile. Oh my God, make them like dead thistles, like dead weeds blown away by the wind. I just love that imagery of dead weeds being blown away by the wind. And literally this psalm is asking for the divine to blow away or just take care of all those enemies in our mind, enemies in our lives, enemies that are causing pain to us. Just take care of them, blow them away like dead thistles, like dead weeds. Swedenborg has a little bit to say about this in his book, Revelation Explained. And this particular passage from that book is not explaining the book of Revelation particularly, but passages like this one, Psalm 83, that refer to tempests or storms or winds. And in it he said that a tempest or a storm signifies the breaking up and dispersion of falsities and evils, because people who are in the falsities of evil are cast down into hell by a tempestuous wind. So I might rephrase that in a little bit more contemporary English and say that tempests, storms, hurricanes, any of that kind of violent windy weather sort of represents how things that are false ideas and evil impulses, sinful ways of being, things that we regret doing or thinking, that they can be taken away, removed, because people that are experiencing those kinds of false ideas, not thinking well, are cast down into hellish states by a tempestuous wind. So as I said, reading on the surface of that psalm, it's a plea to have the Divine One blow away our enemies or the demons that are bothering us, to blow them away like chaff in the wind. But as I read it, I sort of got the opposite meaning, a converse kind of meaning, that my feeling is that my enemies and demons are blowing me around like chaff in the wind. And I'm praying for a return to groundedness. I'm praying to be no longer blown away like chaff in the wind, no longer have my emotions and my thoughts dispersed and thrown around, but to come back to groundedness. I feel like I'm being buffeted by winds of self-doubt and emotion and anxiety and fear of whatever is going on around me in the world. And I'm especially feeling inadequate and resentful about managing multiple responsibilities. I'm wondering if you've been there too. Sometimes when there's just too many things to do, too many things to keep track of, all those feelings of being inadequate and resentful about to people can just come up and blow themselves around in my life. And also resentments and anxieties about all kinds of situations in my life, in other people's lives, in the world around me. How can I still be this vulnerable to those kind of external demons and winds that want to blow me around? What I've found is that I love having activities that are familiar and remind me of who I am, like walking the dog, or doing the dishes, or having coffee with a friend. Those kind of actions are grounding and stabilizing and useful and healing, because in those moments, my enemies or those demons can't blow me around. I'm no longer chaff in the wind that they can disperse. I am finding a temporary answer to my prayer for becoming more grounded instead of being blown around hither and thither. So that little bit of Swedenborg that I read from the Apocalypse Explained is about winds separating what is evil and what is not a good idea, false ideas, from what is good and from what is true. And it's about winds pushing people who are indulging, maybe you might say, in less than ideal behavior, or holding on to false ideas that aren't going to lead to be helpful in their lives. So it's about when in those states, people being pushed into the hellish states of mind. I might rephrase that people who are identifying with falsehoods that are based in self-serving motivations are being blown into hellish states by the chaos that those falsehoods and motivations create. And it's one thing for me to talk about those people out there who are being blown into hellish states by falsehoods and self-serving motivations, but what's really is important is to see it in me. And so if I rephrase this in me, I find myself in hellish states of anxieties and resentments and doubts about myself and doubts about the divine when I allow false ideas and self-serving motivations to grow into damaging winds within me. When I pray for the chaos and false ideas and motivations to be blown away and focus instead on usefulness and grounding, then they can stop blowing my vulnerable spiritual states around, even temporarily. And as I'm able to practice that, praying for the chaos and false ideas to be blown away, and practice deliberately entering into grounding activities, whether it's with other people, whether it's reading the Bible, whether it's reaching out in some way to help somebody, that temporary relief from my vulnerability can become a more constant state. And so my prayer for you today is that if you are feeling that vulnerability to the winds that can blow you around like chaff in the wind, like dead weeds, like thistles, if you're finding yourself in that state, my prayer for you is that the divine can bring you into a state of groundedness, bring you back into connection with what is good and what is true and what is the real you, so that you can withstand those winds. Amen.